Hey, welcome back, everybody, to my newest review. Today, we're going to be talking about the latest Osgood Perkins movie, Keeper. So, I'm a pretty big fan of Osgood Perkins. I've enjoyed quite a bit of his movies. There's still two or one of his movies that I haven't seen. I've seen The Blackcoat's Daughter, which I really enjoy. That seems to be a black sheep for his movies. A lot of people think that movie is super boring and just not for them. For me, I find that movie very eerie and super creepy, so I don't know, something in that movie really works for me. Longlegs, I was a massive, massive fan of. I know a lot of people didn't really like that movie because of the overhype for being scariest movie of the year and all that stuff, which I totally understand. That movie, I thought the marketing for that movie from Neon was genius because of all the cryptic stuff that it put out, and it just, for me, that just drew me in because I miss marketing like that where it didn't tell you anything about the movie. And I genuinely love the movie. I thought it was really, really good and super creepy and super effective, and I don't know, I just loved it. And then he followed that up with The Monkey, which was more of a horror comedy, and that one was really fun, and I really enjoyed that one. So now we're back in this horror world from Osgood Perkins, where this is definitely a folktale horror movie, and it is kind of in the same vein of Longlegs, where it is, to me, it was genuinely very creepy at times. This is one of those movies as well that I don't understand Neon style of marketing, where sometimes for some movies they go in a route where they're very cryptic and very teasing with what they're going to put out. And then other films, they show the whole thing. Like Longlegs, for example, they, was very cryptic and didn't show anything. It kept you wanting more, which, please, please bring that style of marketing back, I beg of you. And then a movie like Cuckoo, for example, that I was really excited for, I was told to avoid the trailer completely because it gave away all the good scares. So with Keeper, I saw the initial teaser trailer where you don't really see nothing or hear about anything. It's just pretty much a voiceover between our two leads, and that really gives you no context to what the story is. So you kind of walk in blind into what the story is anyway. And I can't tell you how much, that just enriches your theater going experience and just the movie overall. So essentially, this movie is about our two main characters, Tatiana Maslany, Rossif Sutherland, which essentially they pretty much play this main couple, and they're going to this cabin. He has this cabin where they're trying to go for this weekend getaway, and when they get there, things are not as they seem. And I'll be honest, I didn't know, thanks to the marketing, I didn't know where this movie was going to go. I didn't know if this was like a serial killer kind of movie, if this was some kind of supernatural kind of movie, or what direction this movie was going to take me in. And of course, once they get there, things, at least for our lead character, Tatiana Maslany, she notices things are a little bit off. She starts not to feel right. She starts to see things and has these visions of things that have happened either in the past. And it kind of leads down this rabbit hole of this really, really unique story. So first and foremost, I just want to say I think our performance by Tatiana Maslany is fantastic. I've always been a big fan of her, and I knew she was going to be good. And I feel like she's a really underrated actress, but she's really the person that carries this whole movie. And she does such a good job because you buy into every emotion that she has to sell for this. There's times where she is just absolutely petrified, and you buy into every ounce of that. And the back and forth between like the playfulness side and the just the complete scared side of her, she's able to go back and forth so well and weave it together. And like I said, her performance is fantastic, and that's a great thing because, like I said, this movie is pretty much carried. She carries the weight of this movie on her, and if we didn't buy into her performance, I don't think this movie would have worked at all. Rossif Sutherland, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on him, to be honest. He's not in the movie a lot. Like it's that typical, It kind of was the same way in the movie The Lodge. It came out a few years ago, where it was typical thing where you drop the wife off of the cabin, and he's a doctor, so he's like, oh, I have to go back into town. I have a patient that I have to check on. So she's left there by herself, essentially. So you don't see a lot of him. and the little bit you see of him, you're kind of like, I don't know, at least for me, something felt a little bit off, but that might have been a performance decision made by him or Osgood Perkins. But there's a thing, without saying anything or spoiling anything, if that was the case, that kind of, I don't know, tipped the hat at something a little bit too early for me, because it kind of tipped my brain into this certain area where I was like, is this going to happen now, or is this that, or is this that? And it's one of those mixed things I'll talk about later, because it didn't end up going that way, so I'm grateful for that. But it was kind of like maybe an early nod to something that I kind of wish they played out a little bit more first. I think there is some genuinely creepy, very creepy elements in this movie, not only just from the things that start to happen around the house, but just the way things are shot and angled. It has that Osgood Perkins style to it. I think he's become such a established filmmaker now that if you were to put a movie in front of me, something that he did, based on the way he shoots certain angles, I'd be like, oh, that's totally an Osgood Perkins movie. Like, there are scenes where these characters are walking around this cabin, and he does, of course, the classic wide shots where a character is literally to the left or right of the frame or right in the middle with all this open space behind them, which I absolutely love that, again, because it has that ability to where your eyes dart around the background looking for every single thing that, try to find something that's there. But there's also these angles that he does where literally there's one frame in particular where the two characters are looking out the window, and they're literally right here on the frame, like that far away from the frame, and then you have all this open space beside of it. And the way those shots are, he does multiple ones like that, to where it's not even just the characters, where you're looking at certain angles of this cabin, like always looking up at the ceiling, for example, or looking in corners of the room or something. And it has these lingering shots to where your brain starts to wonder, am I supposed to see something? And sometimes there's those little music cues where you're like, oh shit, did I miss something? Did I see something and completely miss it? And it's one of those things that I really like about it, because it really adds to that rewatchability. But it also adds to that scariness and that creepiness factor that I really like, which I've talked about many times. And I'm glad to be able to keep talking about it, that they're still making movies like this, because I love them. Of course, the long dark hallways and the open doors into dark hallways, and just create great tense sequences. And I will tell you, always, if you go see this movie, always look in the background for stuff, because there is stuff that I almost missed that I caught last minute, and there are stuff that happens that's super quick. Like there's a shot where Tatiana Maslany is getting out of the bed in the middle of the night, and she's trying to get her phone to come on, and when she moves from the window, you don't see anything. But then, like, when she's trying to get her phone to work and she turns, all of a sudden it's like you see something in the window, and it's so quick because immediately she's out of the frame and it goes to the next scene. So little scenes like that I love, because it keeps you on the edge and just builds this dread and builds this tension so well that you don't know where a particular scare is going to come from. It could be from, and that's the thing too, you don't know if it's going to be a jump scare or a subtle scare. You really don't know what kind of scare it's going to be. And I love those like that, because it keeps the audience on the tip of their toes and keeps them on their edge. And I just appreciate scares like that more than I do just a, boom, jump scare and it's over. I like where you just ratchet the tension so much that you want the scare to be done and over with. And Osgood Perkins, I feel, is becoming just a masterclass at that. And also, I think the way that certain angles are in this cabin, that they shoot certain angles, they're very bizarre angles. Like, I talked about these wide shots, but the way the camera is turned with those shots too, it makes you almost feel even more uncomfortable. And I really love that, because I think it adds to the effect of the creepiness even more. So while you're already kind of on edge with everything else that's going on, when those certain angles kick in and you just don't feel right. You're like, something just feels off. This doesn't feel good. Like, I don't know what it is, but something just feels icky. And it just helps you almost feel even more uncomfortable than you already are. I also think there is a lot of visuals in this movie that I talked about a little bit earlier that is super creepy. Like you see stuff in this movie that I'm like, what in the hell is that? And that's how I describe my out of theater experience. For the majority of this movie, it could have been called Osgood Perkins presents What the Fuck Is This? Because that was that was how I felt a good majority of watching this movie. Like some of the stuff that goes on or that you see in the background, you're like, I feel like I just ate like some psychedelics and I'm on some kind of, bizarre trip somewhere. And I love movies like that because it adds this factor into this movie that it could be something I haven't seen before. And there is some really creepy imagery of certain stuff in this movie that I literally was like, what in the fuck? There's a part, without spoiling anything, near the end of the movie where Tatiana Maslany goes to the basement and there's a bunch of stuff going on. I think literally I was in the theater just. I think the score in this movie is really good too. The score, yet again, is just like I've said before in some other previous reviews, almost becomes a character in itself. And Osgood Perkins knows how to use the score effectively. Like there's certain times where he wants to ratchet up something with the score, and there's other times where he wants stuff to be absolutely silent, and then he wants things to where it's a good blend in between to where you'll have a little bit of the music, but then stuff drops off. And I think scenes like that are really effective because not only are you waiting on this scare to happen, but a lot of times in horror movies, if we've seen horror movie fans already know that when the music swells and comes to a complete silence, that you're waiting for a jump scare to happen. And in this movie, those scenes where it's just silent, you were just tense as hell because you don't know, again, where a scare is going to come from, what's going to happen, or anything like that. And I love when they're able to use a score so effectively, and I love when they're able to use silence because sometimes silence is even more terrifying than the music. But they do such a great job with the score and how he goes about using it throughout the movie. I also really love the fact that this is more of a folktale horror movie. We don't get a lot of folktale horror movies anymore, and I feel like they're kind of a rare breed. And I said this in my out of theater experience, that I think that if we do get a movie that's kind of got this folk style to it, that a lot of it either go under the radar or nobody really talks about them. And I just feel like that's a genre of horror that's kind of just died out. So I'm happy that it has this folklore kind of tale baked into this movie, and it adds so much more to the mystery, which is another thing I love about this movie, is that this movie feels like a great big mystery. Even from the beginning, like as soon as they get to the cabin, stuff starts popping off and you're almost on the ride trying to figure out a mystery. And through these dreams and visions that our main character is having, and so you're mixed in with this lore of this folk tale mixed in with almost like this mystery, and it creates a good blend of stuff with, not only for the horror, but it's enough to keep you hooked into the movie. Like you're like, I'm fascinated by this. I really want to know what is going to happen. Now, with all that being said, I do have, it's kind of a mixed thing for me. I do have a few mixed things. And there's one I don't really know how to explain it. I just feel like at the end of the day that there was something missing from this movie. I don't know if it needed something else, like at a particular part of the movie, or if it just needed another sequence of something. I really don't know. I just feel like you had something really, really good, but it just feels like there's just a piece missing somewhere. And like I said, I can't put my finger on it, but it just feels like there's something in the movie that's missing. And there is a great sequence in the movie where when our character is left on her own, that a lot of these supernatural things start to happen. And I kind of wish we got a little bit more of that. Maybe either there was another little sequence with some more supernatural stuff, or like near the beginning of the movie when stuff slowly starts to happen with, like, a door closing or hearing voices or anything like that. There's a little bit of a sprinkle of that throughout when they first get there, Maybe if a little bit more of that was kind of added onto it, I think I would have, maybe that would have filled that missing piece that I felt. I just felt like we didn't get enough of the supernatural stuff. While I feel there is quite a bit of it, and they do it, and like I said before, they do a good job of keeping you like on the edge of your seat and really tense. I just, and this is a shorter movie. This movie's only like an hour and a half, but I just feel like maybe they could have sprinkled more stuff in the background of certain areas, and maybe they did. It could have been one of those things that I completely overlooked and missed, because this is a movie for sure that you have to rewatch to get everything, because I know without a doubt that I missed a good handful of stuff, and I know that there was probably stuff in the background that I easily missed, and especially with the story that it's trying to tell when it comes to this folklore, and when certain things are revealed near the end of the movie and whatnot. This is a movie that I feel like once you know that, you can go back and watch it and maybe start to pick up on even more stuff as the story goes. So there is a good chance that I did miss a lot of the supernatural stuff, but I just kind of wanted a little bit more of that subtle, haunting style stuff kind of throughout the movie. And like I said, maybe it was in there. I could have just missed it, but I feel like, if we would have got a little bit more of that, that would have been really, more effective to the movie. That, and like I said earlier, there's something that would seem kind of off about about Joseph Sutherland throughout the movie. Like I said, I don't know if it was an acting choice on his behalf or Osgood Perkins' behalf, but it just felt very off. And like I said, that might have been what the direction they were going for, but it just feels to me that was kind of a tip of the hat of something that, comes later, that I was like, well, I don't know why you would want to, be so on the nose about that if that's what they were going for. I don't know. Just something about his performance felt off. But like I said, that might have just added to the character that he was going for to play. But I just kind of wish they were a little bit more subtle about his character when it came to certain things. And then, like that might be a me thing altogether. Somebody might go see this and be like, I didn't pick up on any of that, but I don't know. I just kind of wish, things were a little bit more on the subtle side when it came to his character, and kind of that real offbeat feeling about him. The other thing was, a big thing for movies, especially horror movies, to really root for them, you really have to care about them. And while I did care very much so, more obviously of Tatiana Maslany, you don't know anything really about these characters. You are legit, when this movie starts, they are in the process of getting ready to go to this cabin. And there's little stuff that's told here and there through characters, and when stuff gets obviously near towards the third act, how the story, goes and whatnot. But as for our two main characters, for the majority of it, you don't know anything about them. You know that he's a doctor and she's an artist, and that's really about it. You don't know really much of anything to really kind of to get you to hook in to care about them. But thankfully, like I said, Tatiana Maslany does such a great job of carrying the emotion of this movie. I feel like you're hooked in. Not only that, but the story is interesting. I think the story drives the characters in this movie so much that you are so hooked into the story that you can easily kind of forgive that and kind of go along for the ride for her, because like I said, she does such an amazing job of carrying this movie and gives such a great performance that I feel like you are on board for it, even though you kind of outed because you don't really know much about her. You're still on the ride, and you're still rooting for her by the end of this movie. I don't know if this movie will really be for everybody, because it is very slow. It is a super slow burn horror movie, and that's a lot of the complaints I saw about, one of his first movies, again, that I mentioned in the beginning of this review, The Black Coat's Daughter, a movie that I really, really enjoyed. I rewatched that movie about a year ago. I think it was last year when I rewatched it. And it still wigs me out. Like, there is a particular scene in The Black Coat's Daughter that just creeps me the fuck out. And I don't know. It works for me. So this movie's kind of in the same vein as that movie, especially with his slow build. I know Longlegs was kind of slower on the, more slower burn side, but I don't feel like it was as slow burn as something like this, for example. And so I know that's going to turn a lot of people off because I know slow burn horror movies is not a thing for a lot of people. And so it depends on who you are going into this. That's why I really don't think it'll be for everybody. But if you can kind of like go in with an open mind and really get invested in the story, I think you'll have a good time with it. That is, if you can just get your mind in the right place for a movie like this. I know a lot of times you want to watch a movie, but you're not in the right mindset for it, and that can really affect how you view a movie. And there's other times where you're like, I have no interest in watching that right now. I just don't have the mindset to watch it. So I know that can do it. And but if you can get yourself in that place to kind of be like, okay, I know this is a slower paced movie, but I'm here for the eeriness and the creepiness and the story. I think that will help you along through it. I've seen also a lot of people think this movie has a hint of David Lynch in there, and I can totally see it. Not full-blown David Lynch, because like most of his movies to me are like a full-blown fever dream type of a movie. Like you just went on some kind of bizarre, trippy, spiritual journey watching watching one of his movies. And this one is in the same vein as that, as the fact how I said in the beginning, how a lot of it you're like, what the fuck? I feel like, a lot of David Lynch movies you say the same thing about. It's not quite on the David Lynch level, but it's got some elements of that sprinkled in through here, and it's in the same vein as a David Lynch thing. So I can totally understand what people were talking about when they mentioned that. I don't know where I would rank this movie among his other movies, because this is one that I'm still processing and thinking about. It's one that when I got out of the theater last night that I posted my out of theater reaction for it, but I'm still thinking on it. And I love movies like that because it gives you something to stew in for a while. And with Long Legs, I went like full blown into that movie, like just with so much excitement. With this one, I was excited for, but that movie, for Long Legs, for example, I looked up so many interviews with Osgood Perkins. I listened to so many podcasts and stuff with him, and I think I'll do the same thing with Keeper. It's one of those things where I would love to see his take on it, what he thinks about the movie, what he interprets certain things for the movie. I just love seeing a director's output on that, because I want to direct something one day, and stuff like that fascinates me. So this is a movie that I'll probably do the same thing for. Plus, I think this movie will depend on the person. I think there will be, depending on who sees it, I think there will be a lot of stuff kind of hidden under the surface of this movie that certain people will get things out of that other people want. And that's another thing I love about film, and I love that certain people can interpret things, and that film and art in general can mean different things to different people. So I'm very curious what people will get out of this movie. Like, that's a conversation I would like to have with people that, go see this movie or check it out and see how they feel about it, what they got out of it, and if there's something that kind of, to see what is under the surface for them that they got out of it. And I think me, being in that mindset right now where I'm still kind of processing it and stewing in it, I think upon rewatch, I'll get more out of it the second time, because like I said, I'm sure there is a ton of stuff that I missed in this movie. And I think that'll kind of help me, put it in a particular place of his movies and whatnot, and help me solidify how I really feel about it. While I did enjoy it, I find myself really enjoying it, but it's like I said, in my mixed elements, that just feels like there's something missing about it. And maybe, again, upon rewatch, I'll figure out what that missing piece is, or I'll see something that I missed and it'll completely fill in that gap that I had and be like, never mind, I don't feel that way anymore. I think because this is a movie that, again, you have to really kind of rewatch in order to really, I feel, get a lot of stuff out of it. So, but that's just me. So I would say, if you're an Osgood Perkins fan, I would recommend going to check it out. It's completely different from The Monkey, but The Monkey was completely different from Long Legs. This goes more back in his horror roots of that eerie, creepy vibes that he brought to Long Legs and The Blackcoat's Daughter. And there's some comedic stuff in this movie. Like, there was two guys in my theater that were kind of laughing at certain things, where me, I was kind of just like, the whole time or whatever. So you might get some comedic stuff out of this movie depending on who you are. But if you're an Osgood Perkins fan, if you liked his previous work, I would say go check it out. If not, this might be a movie like how I talked about in Dream Eater, where if you sat at home at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and were just laser focused on this movie, it might genuinely creep you out at home. It might be one of those movies where the home experience might be better for you than the theater experience. It's totally up to you and depending on who you are. Thank you, everybody. That's my review for Keeper. If this is the video you're finding me on, please come over and check out all my other reviews. I have a ton for 2025 this year, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you in the next one. And if you've seen Keeper, please let me know what you thought about it, if you have any particular thoughts on it, if you got anything out of it, and what is your favorite Osgood Perkins movie? I'm very curious. Or if you like Osgood Perkins at all, if he works for you or doesn't work for you. I totally get it. But let me know all that down below, and thank you guys so much. I'll see all of you in the next one.